Hi there, this is Mark Edelman, speech-language pathologist, and welcome to the teaching of talking. I'm going to just get a little bit more light on the subject here, okay? And so welcome. We're going to talk today about memory and recall. You might say, well, Mark, why are you talking about memory and recall? Well, I'm talking about that because in aphasia, one of the biggest problems that people have is the fact that you can teach them a word or review their address or their phone number or whatever you're doing. And one of the things that typically happens is that you can teach a person a word or a number or an address or a name or whatever it is you're working on. And they say it, and gosh, it's great, but sometimes 5 minutes later, the word disappears. And then they have trouble recalling it, whether it's trying to write it or whether they're trying to speak it. And it's one of the major problems in aphasia is memory, the ability to learn something, learn a word, or learn a number or an important event. And by golly, they sure can say it, but it just kind of disappears into thin air. Now, this is not necessarily a problem for everybody with aphasia or apraxia. I mean, there are many people who have learning difficulties, and you may have one, and you may speak normally, but you have a learning problem in that somebody can tell you something, and 2 minutes later it's gone. And that happens between husbands and wives sometimes. A wife will tell a husband something, and the husband says, okay, dear. And, 10 minutes later, it's gone. Or maybe it was gone a minute later. But this is a natural phenomena. The natural phenomena is the immediate memory of what we hear, or the short-term memory of what we learn. So one of the things that has puzzled therapists for years and years and years, and I've been practicing speech pathology for 50 years, and in the beginning, I was kind of in a quandary because whenever I worked with somebody, gosh, we'd work on these words in therapy, and they'd go back home, and then they'd come back a couple days later, and where are the words? I mean, we just worked on. We just worked on them. And we worked on them last week. And we worked on them the week before. And they're still not there. Okay. But don't worry. Because what we're learning is that the more important a word is, the more important a concept is, for some reason, with people who have aphasia, it's easier for them to remember important names or important events or anything that is personally significant. Okay, so I want to tell you a story about how memory works, because this story is probably my story, and it's probably your story, and it's probably the story that many people have, okay? So I'm going to give you a typical example of what happens with aphasia and what happens with memory difficulties that we all have. Okay, so let's say that you've lived in a certain place for 10 years, and you've had the same address, and you've had the same phone number, all right? And a number of times every week, you ordered things from Amazon, or you sent documents to people and things like that. And you always had to include your address. And boom, 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 you would always say that address, and it would come up. And you'd go to stores, and they'd want to give you a free gift or something, but you'd have to give them your email address, or your address or your phone number. And so for 10 years you did this, and you didn't even have to think for a second, not even a second, what your address was or your phone number. And now, hypothetically, let's say you move, and the address is different. The number of the street is different. The name of the street is different. The name of the city is different. And of course, that darn zip code is different. And then they want you to add 4 more numbers onto the zip code that's already there. And what happens is, for a while, after you've moved, you try to remember that address because you're filling out all of these documents, and you keep forgetting the address. Or you keep forgetting the zip code. And it's just a natural occurrence. But you say to yourself, or you think to yourself, or you imagine in your head, I must be having some memory challenges. And so you start to wonder about yourself. Why am I having trouble remembering this new address, or this new phone number, or this new zip code? But you kind of put it out of your mind, and you just keep writing that address, writing that zip code, saying that address, saying that zip code. And when somebody asks you for it, sometimes you have to look down at your phone and you go, oh yeah. And you give them your address and the name of the city and the zip code. So where am I going with all of that? Well, where I'm going is the fact that then one day you wake up and you're behind the computer, and you have to fill out this form that has your address, and by golly, you filled out the address. And then you go out somewhere into town where you have to do something, and you have to put your return address on something. And by golly, you write it down, and you've got it. Now, you didn't know how long it would take for you to get it. You just didn't know how long it would take, but you thought, gosh, this is taking too long. But you finally get it, and you've got the memory, and then wherever you go, with 99.9% accuracy, you are able to regurgitate your address, the name of the city, and the zip code, whether it's 4 numbers or 8. So where am I going with this? Well, where I'm going with this is that this same principle happens with people who have aphasia. Now, in most cases, when you're working on words and recall of words, they immediately can remember what it is that you've worked on, but then a few minutes later, they've forgotten it. But the whole idea here is to persevere and continue the stimulation of the important words and the important concepts. How long is it going to take, you might ask? Well, you don't know. It's just like if you get a cold. How long is it going to take before I start feeling better? You just don't know. You just have to wait. You have to wait and see, and you just have to get back into life and do what you have to do. And if you have to get a cheat sheet to write your address down, so nobody thinks you're a complete imbecile, you do that. But what happens is that the address or the word or the group of words that you've been repeatedly saying or writing, all of a sudden, one day, they pop up and you no longer have to consciously think about it. Now, that's what aphasia therapy is. And a lot of people say, well, gosh, this is so slow. I've been working on the same word, blah, 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 or the same sentence, or the name of my wife, or the name of my girlfriend, or who knows, okay? But you just have to realize that memory is something you don't really control. You don't control it. But to get it, okay, you've got to stay in the saddle. You've got to stay on course. You have to stay on the road, and you just have to continue to practice whatever it is you want to learn, because learning occurs when you first have to consciously do something. And remember that what learning is the ability to consciously perform a task. And as you consciously perform the task, you keep performing the task consciously over and over again until there comes a time when magico presto, the words that you wanted are now there and accessible. Now, that's what happens in normal memory, and that's what happens also with aphasia. However, with aphasia, quite often, it's not as fast as for those who are normal, with the normal brains, okay? So with those with aphasia, sometimes the associated areas in the brain that are next to the speech and language portion of the brain, which often has been damaged with stroke or aphasia, the other parts of the brain start to try and take over for the speech and language area. Now that's okay, but those associated areas are not quite as good as the original part. You know, it's kind of like you have a car and something goes wrong with it. You take it down there. They just take the part out and they put a new one in. Okay? Now, you hope that that part that they're putting in your car, that new part, will work as well as the other one. Okay? Sometimes it does. Sometimes it works better. And sometimes it doesn't work as well. But with aphasia, the other parts of the brain have to start taking on some of that responsibility, and often their job is okay, but it's not quite the same as before, so it may take more time, it may take more repetition, and that's how learning occurs, learning for speech and learning to talk again. It's not a get rich quick. It's not a I'm going to talk real fast and I'm going to get over it real fast. It's not that way. It's a slower procedure, but it's a lot more fun than sitting around with worksheets or flashcards or iPads. Now, the last thing I want to just review is, for some people, they're not going to speak again. Some people have such severe problems that they're not going to speak again, no matter what kind of therapy you give them. I mean, I've seen some patients that just, no matter what I did, they just couldn't do it. They're in the real minority. And for those people, you have to find alternative communication devices. But many with aphasia can learn to speak again. And the caregiver must learn some of these fundamental principles and the principles to help their loved ones talk. And you can learn that by learning the teaching of talking. Underneath the video, we have a bunch of links. We have a video course that you can take independently. We have books you can read, and of course you can contact me, and I can offer you a free initial consultation, and you could consider working with us and allowing me to help identify what the problem is with your loved one's speech, and then help pinpoint exactly where you should start in helping your loved one speak. And then I can personally mentor you through the techniques that you can use to help your loved one talk. So there you have it. And it's not boring, and it's fun because it's within a conversation, and it's not about boring flashcards or iPads or workbooks or any of that stuff. Okay? It's about engaging with another person. So this is Mark Edelman, speech-language pathologist, having a short conversation with you about memory and how we help people with aphasia improve memory so that they can start to recall words and phrases and sentences. So thanks a lot. If you've liked this video, please give us a thumbs up. And of course, there's an area there where you can subscribe. And down below the video are a bunch of links. So if you want to join our mailing list, or if you want to see our website, or if you want to join us on Facebook at teachingoftalking.com, or if you want to just send me a note or a letter, you can do that too. So I hope you have a great day today, and I'll be looking forward to communicating with you further. This is Mark Edelman, speech-language pathologist. Have a great day, a great week, a great month, a great year, and most of all, a great lifetime. Bye-bye now.